Well, good morning, everyone. It is so great to be here with you. Let's turn to Luke chapter 15. That's where we're going to spend most of our time today. Luke chapter 15. Jesus talks with us about some lost things. Talks to us about three lost things, and we're going to kind of look at them in reverse order. I've got a little bit of a backward problem. It started when I was, my first recollection of my backward problem was when I was 5 years old. I was trying to go backwards and see. So if I'm fiercely right-handed. I am so fiercely right-handed, I once hid my wallet from myself in my left pocket. That's no joke. It happened that way. The only thing, though, that I do frequently or every time with my left hand is when I pick up a magazine or a catalog. I pick up a magazine or a catalog with my left hand, my thumb goes to it, and I start working my way from the back to the front. And this all started when I was 5 years old. Because when I was 5 years old, I grew up in a small town in Texas, and I was riding the bus home, and I got off of the bus, and there was something magical sitting on the front porch. The Sears and Roebuck catalog. And in the back of the Sears and Roebuck catalog, that's where the toys are. So I started reading from the back to the front. And I trained myself to do that. So if you ever see me pick up, and I don't do books that way, it's kind of weird, but if I pick up a magazine or anything like that, I'm going from the back to the front. So we're going to do that today. Jesus is talking about lost things, and he's looking at three lost things. He's looking at a sheep, a coin, and a son. Now, most of us are familiar with the lost son. That's one of the stories that I've gone to, and I've taught many lessons. And in Luke chapter 15, it says, a man had two sons. And one of the sons came to his father and said, hey, give me what belongs to me. Now this is an occasion, and I hope we understand that sometimes the Bible does not give us the juicy meat of really what happened here. Because really what he said was, give me what's mine. Now, if you understand the culture of this time, this is a declaration of war. Because see, this son lived in his father's house. The father was responsible for protecting everyone in his household. And when you come and you demand from your father to give you what you're going to get after he's dead, this is a declaration of war. I don't know how often we read that, but I don't know if we read it that way. And it's kind of interesting that his father does. He complies. And he gives them his share. As you read through this, I don't know if you've noticed this, but one thing I've picked up on is it says, so a short time later, he takes what is his and he leaves. And after he squanders what is his, is when he comes back. Give me what's mine. I'm going to take what's mine, and I'm going to squander what is mine. Any of us had that problem? My problem? The blessings that God has given us is mine, of me, by me, and for me. A little bit of a problem that we have there. And after he had squandered everything that was his, we know this part, he comes to his senses and he thinks to himself, my father's house has all these slaves, they have plenty of things to eat, and I'm going to get up out of this pig pen and I'm going to go home. But while he was still a long way off, his father sees him. Not only does his father see him, but his father runs to him. And not only does his father run to him, but his father puts a robe around him. And not only does his father put a robe around him, but his father demands that there is a celebration because his son had returned home. Jesus is the seeker of lost things, and he's seeking us. He's rejoicing when there are people that come home to him. You see, there's a lot of us that are living in a world that is full of my stuff. And where did your stuff come from? Well, let's break this down a little bit. Let's go down to the beating of your heart. Where did that come from? That's your stuff? How about the breath that you just took? That's your stuff? How about that arm that you tried to cut off with a ladder? You gave yourself that? We need to reconfigure our thinking on whose stuff is what. The next account that Jesus gives is of a lost coin. He said, wouldn't a widow that had silver coins, wouldn't she sweep her whole house if she lost one to find it? And then wouldn't she light a lamp? Now, I mean, you think about this. You think about the type of floors that Jesus would have been talking about. I mean, we got this nice carpet floor. We got tile floors out there. That's not the type of floor that we would have been talking about, right? But she would have been sweeping the floor clean. She would have lit a lamp. She would have been searching and seeking for that lost coin. Kind of reminded me of a situation that happened last year. I was in my office, and my youngest daughter gives me a call, and she says, Dad, in my upper level history class, the teacher gave us an extra credit assignment. And the extra credit assignment was he had these coins. And we had to draw numbers, and whoever got the first number got to draw the first coin. Whoever got the last number got to draw the last coin. And I got the last number. The professor said, hey, the first few people are going to have a pretty easy time getting the extra credit because your coins are in pretty good shape. And this is the coin she got. Now, I don't know if you can see, if you look real hard, you can really see absolutely nothing. And she called me and said, Dad, I've soaked this thing in lemon juice. I've gone online and I've put it in, paint thinner. I've put all kinds of solvents on it. It's been soaking for 2 weeks. This is after whatever she had done. It was still there. What do you think I should do? I don't know. Is there a coin shop? Is there a coin shop? Yeah, a coin shop might be a great place to take it, right? Yeah, Dad, I know where there's a coin shop and I'll take it there. And so she takes the coin to the coin shop, and a few minutes later she calls and said they laughed at me. They said, you just throw that away. There's nothing you can do to bring that back. But as she was leaving the coin shop, she looks up and she sees a jewelry store. Now, I'm not going to advertise for the jewelry store, but instead of he going, she went to the store. So if you know the commercial, you can infer where that came from. And she walks in the front door, and there's a young lady that greets her. Now, think about this. So the young lady, salesperson, right? Their job, selling stuff. And in walks a college student. The only money she had probably was that coin. So there's not a big sale coming on this deal. But she greets her and says, hey, how can I help you? And so Kaylin introduces herself and says, I'm a student at Lubbock Christian University, and I've got this coin for this project. And the young lady looks at the coin, and instead of just saying, yeah, I've got no time for you, and instead of saying, well, yeah, we really don't do that. We don't deal in coins. She looked at it and she said, maybe the chemist's in the back. So she calls to the back. And here, within minutes, is a team huddle at this jewelry store. These people are surrounding Kaylin, and there's a lot of half-finished sentence. Maybe if we did. and there were glances, and there were looks, and there was a buzz of excitement going on over this. And the young lady said, if you leave it with us, we'll call you if we're able to do anything with it at all. So Kaylin thought, okay, well, my paper's due at the end of the week, so I hope that she calls me sooner rather than later. And so she leaves, and she runs an errand. And in a very short time, the young lady calls her and says, it's done. So Kaylin goes back, and they bring out this coin. And you can actually see who this guy is. But who is he? So this is Emperor Constantinus II. He is the son of Emperor Constantine. Emperor Constantine was the first Christian, or accredited to be, the first Christian Roman emperor that there was. He set up Constantinople. His son carried on his father's tradition of being a Christ-following emperor, so much so that he made other types of pagan worship illegal. I mean, this is a pretty awesome story, right? But here's the thing that is so cool about this. Some other things I would say. You see, Kaylin didn't need the extra credit. The only reason she did it and the only reason she went to these links is because the professor told her good luck when she picked up the coin. It gives you a little insight into my daughter, right? Excuse me, my wife's daughter. She did not need the extra credit, just like Jesus does not need a relationship with us. But he fought for it, just like she fought to get this coin restored. That's pretty cool. So she takes it back, and she calls me and says, Dad, today's the day of my presentation. I was like, oh, can you video this? No. Okay, well, call me as soon as you're done, because I want to know how your professor responded. After Mr. Good Luck. Well, anyway. Maybe it is my daughter, all right? So she goes in and she presents, and he's blown away. As a matter of fact, at the end of her presentation, he goes, man, that's pretty amazing. Can I have it back? Nope, was her response. He was so impressed by her presentation that he brought her before a panel of professors to basically show what his student had done. So the professor becomes the student becomes the professor. They were so impressed that she was invited to go to the National History Symposium and present on this. Now, this is a secular thing. So she would have gotten to go with her coin and talk about Constantinus II, a Christian. That's pretty awesome how God works in that situation. But you want to know really what the most awesome part of this story was? To me? The young lady she met. You see, when Kaylin met this young lady, they got to talking, and the young lady said, yeah, you know, I'm a Christian, but my faith has just kind of wavered. And I really don't have a church family, and I really don't have the relationship I need to have with God. And because of Kaylin's pursuit to get this coin, she was able to share her faith and connect with this young lady who was seeking to restore the relationship with God. You see, it's amazing how God puts us in circumstances and situations that we may not be prepared for. She didn't walk into that jewelry store looking to connect with someone whose faith was wavering. But you never know. You never know when you walk in that grocery store and that person that's in front of you is having a bad day. Maybe just maybe they're having a bad day because the life they're living they know is not right, because there's a stirring inside of them that tells them there's got to be something more to this life. There's got to be something more than getting up, going to work, going home, going to bed. Getting up, going to work, going home, going to bed. There's got to be something more. Maybe, just maybe. That's why people think they don't need God. They don't need a relationship with God because, hey, at the end of this thing, it's just over. It's just done. I'm hopeless right now, so why would I want to have hope in anything else? What if we are the light to them? Jesus is a seeker of lost things, and sometimes we're the light in this darkness. It's kind of interesting when we read the verse. I wanted us to read that verse, the last part of chapter 15. When the Father says, we're going to celebrate because this son was dead and now he's alive. He's lost, but now he's found. You see, if we don't know what death is, how do we know what life is? If we don't know what it is to be lost, how do we know what it is to be found? If we don't know what it is to be sick, how do we know what it is to be well? And at the beginning of chapter 15, when Jesus talks about who he's sitting with, or when they talk about who Jesus is sitting with, he's sitting with the sinners and the tax collectors. And the Pharisees and teachers of the law are the ones that come up and are talking among themselves and talking about him and who he's hanging out with. In that situation, who knew they were lost and who needed to be found? Or more importantly, why weren't they doing their jobs? Why weren't the Pharisees and the teacher of the law doing their jobs with these lost people? Where do we fit in these stories? Go into all the world and find those that are lost and bring them to me. Who was that given to? Go. Commandment. Command. Go. Same word Jesus used when the demon said, send us into the pigs. What did he say? Go. Pretty powerful word. Go through your Bible sometime and highlight the word go where you see it. It is very powerful, the verses that you'll find that in. And if we're commanded to go in the world and be light in this darkness, because here's the thing, how do people know that they're in darkness unless they can see the light? That's who we are, or that's who we should be. We should be the light to this world, reflecting the one who sent us. We're the ambassadors of God. You know, sometimes we put ourselves on pedestals. We think we're better than we really are. We think we're maybe hold a place of honor. Sometimes, because of that, people around us look at us as if we're not approachable. As a matter of fact, Some of us sitting here in this auditorium may be the one sheep that's sitting in the middle of the 99, and you think you're the only one that's lost, or you're the only one that has that problem, or you're the only one that's ever struggled with whatever it is. And that's not right. Jim shared with us the story of David at a time of his table talk, and I know and he talks about David being a man after God's own heart. And I know we read the story of David, and we know he's a real man, but I think sometimes we know how the story began, and we know how the story ended, and we know that it worked out. And I think sometimes in our lives we look at it and go, yeah, those people in the Bible, yes, they're real people, but I can read about their story. I can see that there was a beginning, there was a middle, and there was an end. And I don't know what my story is. Here's a suggestion. If you're in a circumstance that you don't know how your story is going to go, let me suggest this to myself and to you. How about we put the pen down? We quit writing our story and let God write it for us. How about we let the author and perfecter of all things write the story? How about we just get about seeking His will? God doesn't need a relationship with us. God didn't need the extra credit. But God so loved you that He sent His Son to die for you. Not to judge this world, but to save it. Not to judge you, but to save you. What about the sheep? Almost forgot the sheep. Well, if you want to hear about the sheep, you got to come tonight, because we're going to talk about the sheep. But there are people here that need to come home. There are people here that may have needs for prayers. There are people here that may need a hug around the neck. But the elders are going to be standing around the back of the auditorium. They're going to be here so that you can go talk with them. We as a family would love nothing more than to celebrate your coming home. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. We're not here to be the bigger brother, the older brother, and judge you for where you've been, because we've been there. We're here to love you and to welcome you home. If you have any needs at all, please let us know as we stand and sing.